In the heart of Chicago, where old secrets mix with new skylines, one crumpled receipt found in a diner trash bin would unravel a story of greed, betrayal, and a mystery no one saw coming. On that cold Chicago morning, Ray Alvarez did what he always did. He opened his little diner, wiped down the counters, and poured himself the first cup of coffee before the regulars shuffled in. It was his routine, the rhythm of his life. But that day, something small, almost forgettable, broke the rhythm, a crumpled piece of paper sticking out of the trash. At first, Ray didn't think twice. Trash is trash, right? But curiosity has a way of tugging at you. He reached in, pulled it out, and smoothed it flat on the counter. It was a receipt, his receipt, from his own register. But here's the strange part, Ray knew every sale in that place like the back of his hand, and this one didn't belong. The numbers were too high. Too exact. Too wrong. Then his eyes fell on the date. That's when the air left his chest. The receipt was printed for 2 days into the future. Now, Ray wasn't a man who believed in ghosts, but he knew machines don't make up dates. This was deliberate. Someone wanted that receipt to exist. And someone wanted him to find it. The longer he stared at it, the more his hands began to tremble. Maybe it was just a prank, maybe one of the kids from the block messing around. But then he noticed something scribbled at the bottom, written in ink, not printed, this time, no witnesses. That one line hit him harder than the freezing wind outside. Suddenly, this wasn't funny. It wasn't harmless. It was a warning. Ray stood there in his empty diner, the hum of the refrigerators behind him, the smell of burnt coffee in the air, and for the first time in years, he felt truly afraid. Afraid that his little corner of Chicago wasn't just a diner anymore. It was part of something bigger. Something dangerous. And whether he liked it or not, he was now in the middle of it. Ray sat in the booth by the window, the receipt still in his hand, staring out at the city that never seemed to sleep. He thought of all the people who came and went through his diner. Truck drivers. Construction workers. The occasional cop. And sometimes, men in suits who never stayed long, who never gave their names. Could one of them have slipped this in? He replayed the last week in his head. Nothing stood out. No fights, no strange customers lingering too long. Still, that note, no witnesses, it gnawed at him. If someone had chosen his diner as part of their plan, then he wasn't just a bystander anymore. He was a liability. That night, Ray barely slept. Every sound outside made him jump. Every shadow on the wall felt like someone watching him. The city felt different now, colder, sharper. The receipt was no longer just a piece of paper. It was a ticking clock, counting down to something he couldn't yet see. By morning, he decided he couldn't carry this weight alone. He needed someone who could read between the lines, someone who could understand what this really meant. And in Chicago, there was only one name that came to mind, Detective Lisa Marquez. Detective Lisa Marquez wasn't the type to waste time. She had seen enough strange cases in Chicago to know when something smelled wrong. When Ray slid the receipt across her desk, she didn't laugh it off or call it a prank. She leaned in, studying every line like it was a confession. "What makes you so sure this isn't just a mistake?" she asked. Ray's hands were shaking as he explained how he knew every transaction, how he recognized his own handwriting at the bottom of the note. That detail made her pause. This wasn't some random scrap, it was personal. Lisa had a reputation in the department. She wasn't afraid to chase leads others dismissed, and she knew the city's underbelly better than most. She'd grown up here, seen friends pulled into gangs, watched families disappear into witness protection. When she looked at the receipt, she didn't just see numbers, she saw a map. Her gut told her this was more than just a setup. It had the fingerprints of organized crime all over it. And in Chicago, organized crime never truly went away, it just changed its face. She looked up at Ray, her voice steady but firm. "If this is what I think it is, you're already in deeper than you realize." Lisa began digging through old case files, cross-checking numbers. That's when she saw the pattern. The total on the receipt wasn't random, it matched a figure she'd seen before. A cash drop amount. The exact kind used by the remnants of the Chicago outfit. The outfit, once America's most notorious crime family, had gone quiet in recent decades. But Lisa knew better. Quiet didn't mean gone. Quiet meant waiting. They'd always used fronts, bars, laundromats, restaurants. A diner? That fit their playbook perfectly. Her research turned up whispers. A small but violent crew, descendants of old mob bloodlines, still operated in Chicago's shadows. They were known for their precision, their secrecy. And their message was always the same: if you got in the way, you disappeared. When Lisa returned to the diner to share what she'd found, Ray's face went pale. He had spent years serving coffee and eggs, not realizing his little corner of Chicago was sitting on a fault line of organized crime. And now, with that one piece of paper, the ground beneath him was starting to crack. Ray looked at her with wide eyes and asked the only question that mattered: what do we do now? Lisa sat with Ray in the back booth of the diner, the receipt between them like a bomb waiting to go off. She tapped the paper with her pen. Friday night. Midnight. That's when they'll move. Her voice was calm, but Ray could see the storm behind her eyes. The diner wasn't just any diner. Across the street sat the Chicago Jewelry Exchange, a fortress of glass and steel. Most people forgot that back in the 1970s, the outfit had robbed the same building. Millions in diamonds, gone in one night. The city never solved it. Lisa suspected this wasn't a coincidence. History, she thought, had a cruel way of repeating itself. Ray felt sick to his stomach. His little place wasn't just a coffee stop anymore, it was about to become ground zero for something big. He wondered if he should close shop, pack a bag, disappear before Friday. But Lisa's words stopped him cold: if you run, you'll look guilty. And trust me, they'll find you. The receipt wasn't just a clue. It was a schedule. And whether they liked it or not, the countdown to violence had already begun. By Thursday, the diner was no longer a diner, it was a stakeout. Lisa's team from the Chicago PD set up surveillance, hidden cameras tucked into street lamps, unmarked cars lining the block. The Jewelry Exchange glittered across the street, oblivious to the trap about to spring. Ray tried to keep the diner open, serving coffee to regulars, pretending everything was normal. But every time the doorbell rang, his heart jumped. He watched strangers too closely, listened for accents, for orders that didn't sound right. His hands shook as he poured coffee, and his regulars noticed. "You okay, Ray?" they asked. He lied every time. Friday night came like a storm creeping in. The city outside buzzed with nightlife, couples on dates, taxis honking, music spilling from bars. But inside the diner, the air was thick, heavy. Midnight approached, every tick of the clock loud in Ray's ears. Then, right on schedule, the black SUV pulled up. Doors opened. Men in masks stepped out, weapons glinting under the streetlights. They moved fast, like soldiers rehearsing a drill. And in that moment, Ray understood, the receipt had been their blueprint all along. Just when the crew was about to make their move, headlights cut across the street. Another car screeched to a halt, and before anyone could blink, gunfire erupted. Muzzle flashes lit up the night. Lisa shouted into her radio, calling units to move in, but the scene had already spun out of control. The second car wasn't backup. It was a rival crew. A ghost from the outfit's past, a gang long thought dead, had chosen this night to return. Ray dove behind the counter as bullets shattered the diner windows. Plates and coffee cups exploded into shards around him. He could hear Lisa shouting, her voice lost in the chaos. The Jewelry Exchange, the diner, the entire block, it had turned into a battlefield in seconds. For Ray, time seemed to slow. He realized the note on the receipt wasn't just a threat, it was prophecy. This time, no witnesses. And right now, he wasn't sure he'd live long enough to see the sunrise. By the time the gunfire stopped, smoke and silence hung heavy in the air. Police sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder as backup swarmed the block. Two men lay dead on the pavement, their masks pulled off by paramedics who would never forget those faces. Three others were dragged away in handcuffs, spitting curses through bloodied lips. The jewelry exchange remained untouched, but the diner. Ray's diner was in ruins. Glass crunched underfoot, neon lights flickered weakly, and his counter, his pride and joy, was splintered by bullets. He stood in the middle of it all, numb, watching officers collect shell casings like pieces of a puzzle he never wanted to see. Lisa walked over, brushing glass from her jacket. Her eyes locked on Ray's. "The note's writer wasn't here tonight," she said. The words sent a chill through him. The one who planned it all, the mastermind, was still out there. For the first time, Ray wondered if he'd been played. Maybe the receipt wasn't a warning to him. Maybe it was bait. Back at headquarters, Lisa pored over evidence. Fingerprints, surveillance footage, handwriting samples. She was good at puzzles, but this one refused to come together. Then she noticed something, a subtle curl in the handwriting on the note. A flourish on the letter R. She compared it to old forms Ray had filled out when registering his diner with the city. The match was undeniable. The handwriting on the receipt was Ray's. Her stomach dropped. Could it be true? Had Ray staged the entire thing? It suddenly made sense, the fake discovery of the receipt, the timing, the way he'd pulled her in. If Ray had set the trap, then everything, the cruise, the shootout, the chaos, was part of a plan only he understood. Lisa didn't want to believe it. She thought Ray was just a frightened man caught in the wrong place. But now, it seemed he was the one pulling strings all along. When police returned to question him, Ray was gone. The diner sat dark, chairs overturned, coffee stains drying on the floor. His apartment upstairs was empty, his clothes still hanging in the closet. No signs of a struggle. Just absence. Rumors spread fast. Some swore Ray had fled with the outfit's missing cash, hidden for decades and finally within his reach. Others whispered that the mob had taken care of him, punishing him for outsmarting both sides. Detective Marquez stood in the empty diner, the receipt in her hand. It was the only thing Ray left behind, the last piece of paper tying him to a story that no one could quite finish. As she tucked it into an evidence bag, she couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't the end. In Chicago, stories don't end, they just go quiet. Somewhere out there, Ray Alvarez was either rich, dead, or waiting for his next move. And the city, as always, kept its secrets close. In Chicago, even a simple diner receipt can be a death sentence, or a ticket to freedom. But the truth about Ray Alvarez? That's still out there, buried under whispers and shadows. So I'll leave you with this question: what really happened to Ray, and will the last receipt ever tell us the answer?